Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pro Wrestling Inside and Out. This is the Wrestling Conversation, episode 2, and this is where we talk about everything and everybody, and hopefully we don't make anybody mad in the process of talking. But if you have any questions, you have any comments, you have any complaint about what you're watching on wrestling, or you just have something you want to talk about. You just have something you want to get off your mind and talk about something you saw in the past. Because on this program, on this episode, on the Wrestling Conversation, it's not just about yesterday's wrestling. This is going to be about what's going on today in wrestling, what's going on, what did go on, and maybe the future of wrestling. And it's not going to just be about yesterday's wrestling. And I think we need to start out with this one thing. I think, Jack, if I'm not mistaken, they are going to start next week, maybe, having live crowds again for the WWE and All Elite Wrestling. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, well, I know Florida's going to allow that. Right now, I haven't heard for sure if WWE is going to do a live crowd, but AEW is going to.
You know, if done right, I mean, it's going to be, you're going to have to really work at it to make it look right, because you can only have about 10 people over here and 10 over there. But if it's done right, I think it'll be a good fit for them, and I think it'll work out, because it's kind of brutal to watch it without fans.
Yeah, it is.
I want to say, hey, Jason Weeks, how are you doing? Good to see you on here. Oh, Jason, one of the Mask Infernos managed by Jack Lord many years when we were promoting when we was promoting wrestling back in the sometime in the 90s. It's all went back together to me, but I think it was the 90s. Ginger Kimball, Jack, what was the name when you wrestled? Jack, what was your name when you wrestled?
The Bomber, Jack Lord.
And
Ginger, how you doing?
And maybe other names people gave them throughout the years. But Jason Weeks said, "Let's do it again." It would be nice, and we are going to tell you about something at the end of the program. But we'll let everybody in on that as we get to the end of the program. Now, the live crowds. I do have to talk just for a moment about the WWE. Now, how many times, and I just have to ask this question, how many times do they have to have a contract signing, and at the end of that, somebody beats somebody up?
Yeah, just once I'd like for them to change that up and actually just sign a contract. Everybody shake hands and go have a Coke.
Yeah, it would be nice. It would be nice to see this. Ginger, let me get back with Ginger. Ginger says, I remember that blonde hair.
I remember hair, period. It's been a long time, though.
But I watched that match, WWE. I watched some stuff, and I don't know, Jack, if you noticed this or not. And but I wanted to point this out on one television program, and I don't know, it may be about 2 weeks ago. The World Heavyweight Champion Drew McIntyre, he did this thing where he flips over, and the guys basically catch him on the, and then on the latest television show, they did the same exact move again with 2 other guys. Are they not watching this? Are they not seeing this, or did they just say, "Hey, do whatever you want to do out there today? It's all right"? You know?
Well,
nobody's watching.
So you noticed it twice, but it happens every show. I mean, I think I can say that and not be wrong about it. It happens at least once a show, if not more. I hate that. I really do. I don't mind the spot if it means something. I don't mind anything in wrestling if it means something. But when you're doing that every show, that diving out on people, regardless of the setup, it's just the same old thing. And a lot of the new guys gripe at us because we used to do things a certain way, and now they're doing, they're in their formula. They do their formula stuff every match now.
Or is there, I don't know how they do the product, but is there not somebody sitting there saying, oh, by the way, they did that last week? Or is the matches not that, as we think, are that well put together that they know they're going to do those spots? Is it done on the fly now?
No, I mean, they put it together. I don't know that they really sat down and think out through the matches as much as the whatever kind of storyline they think they're trying to put out there. So I think to them, the matches are kind of irrelevant. They're just trying to get from segment to segment, and they're wanting to try to pop the crowd, or as we used to call it, hot shot in the territory. They're just trying to hot shot each show, get as many big spots in there, and pop the crowd as much as they can to keep interest there.
Whew. I'm telling you, we won't talk too much more about WWE, but I don't even watch the other wrestling organizations, but that one could really need someone to be the cleanup man, so to speak, that will clean all that stuff up. If they could do that, I think they could go the next one over. There's old Bob Blackburn. If I'm not, that is the DI, right?
The DI.
He wrestled as the DI at the Continental Wrestling Federation. Very good wrestler and a very good guy. Charlie Platt. He honed in and told us don't ruin the show with the men's BS. Yes, I agree with you. But we had to talk about it just a little bit because it is out there. Unfortunately, it is the wrestling that if you would say the big boy, I guess they would be the only big wrestling company out there. So let's see. David Lawson asked, since Ronnie was from Cleveland, did he know any of the other wrestlers from Cleveland growing up? Don Carson? Yes, he did know Don Carson. Ken Hawk? Yes, he did know Ken Hawk. J.C. Dykes, know him very well. J.C. Dykes is the person who got him started in pro wrestling. He was supposed to be he was putting up the ring, and J.C. Dykes was refereeing. And then one day, a wrestler didn't show up. They needed a referee. They threw Dad in there, and that was 1962. He's 14 years old. He actually worked in the wrestling business till 1996. So what is that? About 32 years. He was in professional wrestling. Larry Cheatham, yes, knew Larry Cheatham. Frank Hester. I believe he did know Frank Hester. Was he not one of the Infernos? Maybe. Love the shows. By the way, I'm from Cleveland, also Cleveland, Tennessee, a great place. Thank you very much, David Lawson. Bob says no psychology, and I'm pretty sure he could be talking about this show, but I believe he's actually talking about the WWE. But no, there is no psychology whatsoever. David Lawson said, "What do you think of the new NWA?" I've not watched it. I tried, but Jack, I know you have. Go ahead and tell your thoughts about that.
I have, and I know a lot of the guys there. I think overall the product's good. I don't like the kind of campy humor stuff that they try to go into a while, sometimes on there. It's almost reminiscent of the original Batman series in a way. You love it and you love what they're trying to do, but it's a little silly at some time. But we all have growing pains and getting where we need to be as a product. And I think it's good. I really do enjoy it.
What I have seen of it, I like the idea. I like the concept of what they're going for. I've only watched one or two matches, and it just seems like the crowd is about as much as part of the show. Do they pay all them people to sit in the crowd? Because
no, they sell those seats.
They sell those seats.
Tickets. Yeah.
Wrestling fans are a little different than what they used to be. I mean,
yeah.
They are a little different. Yeah, I have not watched the NWA. I did watch a little bit of Impact Wrestling the other night, and it was 5 guys out there, and they were doing this clown act. I mean, this was actually a clown act, but they were behind each other, and they would slip around and go to the other side. I'm thinking, man, you're wasting people's time, their efforts. You're never going to do well doing that. People are not going to go for that. Let's see. Stanley Nick said, "Hey Jack, I thought you were Batman."
No. I wish I was. I could use some money.
Bubba Griffith asked, "Did you spend any time in the Gulf Coast?" Yes, we were at the Gulf Coast. My dad actually in 1970, he went to the Gulf Coast Championship Wrestling. I'm guessing he's asking about the Gulf Coast. I'm guessing he's asking about the wrestling company and not just did we go there as in a thing. But In 1970, he went there, and he was the first time Dad ever was in the office. The Fields put him in the office. He didn't stay there long. He left. He left maybe about 6 months into it, and he went back to work for Nick Goulas. From there, he went to work for Jim Crockett, and not Jim Crockett Jr., Jim Crockett Sr. Jim Crockett Jr., what can you say about Jim Crockett Jr.? I don't know that he had the abilities that his father had. Jim Crockett Sr. was a smart man and knew professional wrestling, and I think Jim Crockett wanted to be everybody's friend, and Jim Crockett Sr. didn't care if you were his friend. He cared if you drew him money. I mean, that's the. Have you watched the Dark Side of the Ring, David Schultz story?
I did.
That is a tremendous story. David Schultz was a tremendous wrestler, and if anybody knows about Herb Welch, I mean, what did Vince McMahon believe was going to happen? I mean, you put David Schultz out there, and you're going to use the word fake. He had to know he was going to slap.
I think he knew what was going to happen. I just don't think he was ready for the fallout from it, and finally got to the point where he had to put the blame on somebody and, just try to put it on Dr. D, which is a shame because, man, what a talent he was. I mean, he was Stone Cold Steve Austin before there was a Stone Cold Steve Austin. And
that's
legit.
Yes, he was. And, it's funny because he was so good at that. There's a portion of that where he says that the police came to Vince McMahon after he was telling his kids to get up and telling his wife to shut up, that they really believed that he was this guy. And that was what David Schultz was. David Schultz was if you didn't see him and Dennis Condrey as a tag team, great tag team. They were probably one of the best tag teams in wrestling. Now, I know that Jim Cornette will tell you that they only drew money. Dennis Condrey ever drew money when he was with them. But that is not a true statement. Dennis Condrey drew money with Dennis Condrey, David Schultz, Dennis Condrey and Phil Hickerson, Dennis Condrey, Norville Austin, and Randy Rose. Dennis Condrey drew money way before Jim Cornette was even thought about in the wrestling business. So it wasn't just Jim Cornette and the Midnight Express, which, don't get me wrong, they drew a lot of money, but Dennis Condrey drew a lot of money prior to that. Yeah. Let's see. Dr. D was a true heel. Yes, he was. There's no doubt. Hello, Rodney Grimes. Rodney Grimes from Mississippi. Produced some great wrestling in Mississippi. Hello, and hope you're doing good, Rodney. It's been a long time, and we're going to have to all get together one day when all this nastiness that we've got going on is done. Charlie Platt said the best of the series. Yes, I agree. The David Schultz one was the best of the series. It was a very good part of the series. Jim Crockett Jr. made a small fortune after he inherited a large fortune. Bob, I believe you're telling the truth there.
That is, that's the old joke in the business is, how do you become, as a promoter, how do you make $1 million? You start with $2 million.
Jim Crockett Jr. I will tell you, we sat down with him. But let me bring my brother in because I want to tell this story about Jim Crockett Jr. I'm going to bring him in right now because I want to, let's put it like this. Maybe this will look better. I'm sorry.
I was napping. Sorry.
I didn't mean to wake you up.
Jim Crockett Jr. and I fell asleep.
All right, let me turn this off because we don't want that to be over top of your head. But I want to tell you a little bit about
dark. I need to get some lights in this house.
I'm going to tell you a little story about Jim Crockett Jr. He comes to Chattanooga, Tennessee, and he's going to run wrestling in Chattanooga. And Jack, you might remember this, but he was going to come to Chattanooga, and he gave us all these big things that he was going to do. Now, unfortunately, Jimmy Crockett Jr. ended up with about 10 bookers that night. I think he told 10 different people that they were going to book their matches that night. And I mean, it was a horrible week. Well, we didn't even go because once we found out that Michael Hayes was going to take care of his stuff, and I can't remember all the other people that were supposed to be on. But we could tell you, we sat with Jim Crockett and we were supposed to go for that night. And tell the story, Rodney, when we were sitting in the office talking to him about the show. his thought processing as far as what he thought.
His main thing was to get the attention of WCW. His main thing was, if you don't think WCW is we're going to get their attention, they're going to come down on us, you're out of your mind. And I said, I can tell you this, WCW and TBS could care less about you and could care less about what you do. They are not going to be paying attention to Chattanooga, Tennessee. They're not going to be paying attention to anything we're doing because they're too busy trying to solve their own problems. And you are not one of them. And I tried to explain that to him. Oh, but he got all, no. And this was all his little, his scheme to try to get back at WCW. And instead of trying to build his own, and then at that point, we just pulled all of our support because we're interested in building a brand new organization. We weren't interested in going to work for WCW or trying to do something with him. We were trying to build a regional wrestling organization, something that brought wrestling on a regular basis to different markets, not to go back to WCW. We no way, shape, or form do we going to try to emulate that model. We wanted to do what we grew up with. That means regular scheduling wrestling events in possibly 6 to 12 markets. Not this kind of nonsense he tried to come up with that. And I tried to explain. You got to the point where every wrestling fan is smartened up to the fact that nothing happens unless there's a TV camera there. There's not going to be a title change. There's not going to anything happen because that's the way you've educated the fans. Tell me the last time they've sent the camera out to a house show and something happened. And I can tell you, he couldn't put one thing. He said that didn't matter. And I said, of course it does. People want to be involved with the big historical events. They don't want to be sitting there just watching the show. If they're going to do that, they could just sit home at TV. But yeah, we wasn't on the same page at all. Did I get too fired up there? I need to calm down. I don't want to get sorry about that.
We may have to send Rodney to some type of anger management school before he comes off the program.
This is what we're going to talk about right here. You people want to watch good wrestling? This is it. We're doing it. Me and Bill Dundee, we're laying it all out. And I went through and watched 6 hours of Mid-South in 1984. Best wrestling ever.
David Lawson said, Tommy Rich in a shoot interview having heat with Jim Crockett. Have you heard that, Jack?
No, I didn't hear anything about that.
I do know he thought people didn't pay him right. He would complain about Bill Watts, say Bill Watts. He went all the way to the Superdome. There's 20,000 people there, and he got $150. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I don't know why he want to lie about that, but he said Jim Crockett did the same thing to him. I don't know if that was true.
I've heard that as well because of Starrcade. Kevin Sullivan and all them went over and done Starrcade. I think it was the second one, and they didn't get what they deserved either.
Larry Brock.
Hello, how you doing, Larry?
Sir? I'm telling you, buddy. We saw old Larry put some, as they say, as the guy in Knoxville used to say, the whoop your head hold on some people.
Yeah, the whoop your head hold on the fans.
Yeah, he put some. The fans gave Larry Brock a bad time.
He just spot him coming from way back.
Some great times in Dothan, Alabama. Anybody that was the hotbed of professional wrestling was Dothan. There ain't no doubt about that. That probably had to be. And while we're talking about Tommy Rich, since we're going to talk about Tommy Rich and somebody brought Tommy Rich up, I have to say that I think we talked about it before, but there's been all kinds of. Michael Hayes went on What was the show, Jack, that they did where they all sat together? There's 4 of them. I think Jim Ross or somebody did what was this called?
I can't remember. It was a Roundtable or something like that.
Roundtable discussion. Really good
series. Yeah.
Now, evidently, Michael Hayes must have thought he must have thought they were working him, but he told the people that Tommy Rich's win was basically a screw job, basically of the it was like a Bret Hart deal, which it never was. Tommy Rich won the title now, did it help Tommy Rich winning the title for 1 week? Probably not. That probably was not the greatest thing at the time. Probably hurt them more than it actually helped them. What do you think, Jack?
I was there during that time period, so I remember the big pop. Hearing about that he had the belt. I think though before he got to Columbus, he had already dropped the belt. So of course that was the thing running through everybody in the crowd was, man, that didn't last long. And then he had a return match with Harley, and I don't know what the deal was, but he basically went out in that return match and just did a job for Harley. I mean, he had a few hope comebacks and that was it. And then Harley beat him right in the middle of the ring. So, I don't know what that was about.
Yeah, I really don't think that it helped him. I mean, at least he can say he is a former NWO World Champion, but I don't know if it helped him the way they thought it was going to help him putting the title on him. But everybody, that match, they knew exactly what was going on. Harley Race. Number one, Tommy Rich couldn't beat Harley Race in his great day. The only way he's beating Harley Race if Harley Race wants him to beat him.
I want to say though that for that certain time period there, Tommy Rich was probably the hottest babyface in the business.
Yeah.
I mean, the crowd reaction was just phenomenal to it. And if Tommy had ever been able to keep his head right, I think he could have been a major star somewhere. But he just, he was his own worst enemy, and I hate that because I like Tommy personally.
Yeah, me too. Shannon Kathleen Moore. Hello, Jack, Brent, Rodney. Hello, Shannon. Thank you so much for listening to us on now, folks, you're watching this. We're not talking about anything particular. There's those topics. So if you've got something you've got a comment you want to make, just go ahead and send your comment in. If you just want to, you want, maybe we can answer a question. And if we don't know it, Jack will make it up.
I'm good.
He'll just make it up.
I'm honest enough to tell you that I'll lie.
There you go. So it won't matter. We'll answer it up. David Lawson said it was called the Legends Roundtable. Legends Roundtable. But yeah, I don't know why I've got to say something. There is a wrestler, and probably everybody on here at least has heard about the guy. I won't even tell his name, but he's in California, and he just recently tweeted a tweet. And he said that Van Vader was too hard and that he thought back then there were bullying in wrestling. Now, this is the problem with this guy that he did. What you was watching was a work that looked real. So he was not being bullying him. That was called professional wrestling. And this guy, though, he said they were bullying, and Jim Cornette and him got into a sparring match next to each other. But I don't think he understands what wrestling is. Is that the problem, Jack, with people today? And I asked Rodney the same thing. Is that the problem today, that they believe what they're watching today is the same stuff that was being done in the 70s, 80s, and even the early 90s?
Yeah, I mean, it's a different product. It's a different world. It was hard to get in when I started. In 1975, man. It literally took me almost 10 years to fully get in the door to actually start wrestling. I mean, it was hard. Hard business. I got beat up. I beat people up. I mean, it was just part of it. And everybody wants to talk about Terry Gordy, and I agree. Being one of the greatest wrestlers in the world, I love Terry Gordy. But, buddy, if you didn't change your shorts before you went in there, you'd have to when you got out, because he'd lay some stuff in there. And I love that. But, that's a different mentality, a different age. I don't mean this unkindly. I don't think a lot of guys now could survive back then. But also saying that, a lot of the guys back then couldn't do what's being done today.
Yeah, this is true.
Two different.
And I don't think really and truly the problem is even the guys in the business, they did it so well that the guys that say they're in the business now believe what they were doing was real. And that says a lot about the wrestlers back in those days, how good they were, because that guy really thought that Van Vader was beating the guy up. And the guy finally tweeted back to him and says, listen, I was in the ring with the guy. He was not. You just thought he was beating me up because that's what we wanted you to believe.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, you know, guys could be tight, but you know, guys that were stiff didn't. I mean, they got took to school. I mean, you know, a promoter would bring somebody in to take care of that. So that wasn't a prevalent thing, you know, back in our day.
No,
you know,
no,
we were just taught to, you know, you work a tad tighter. I mean, if you couldn't be light and make it look tight, look legit, then you tightened up a little bit to make it look legit. But you still wouldn't try to hurt each other. That defeated the purpose of what we were doing.
I mean, what do you think, Rodney? I mean, the guys today, what does it say about those guys that they believed that what they were doing was legit?
Honestly, that's the difference between professional wrestling and sports entertainment. It's just they're not meant to be the same. And when you come to the point where back then they were regarding as such as Mid-South wrestling that we're covering, they come to the point that it's real. They give you no indications that today's product is even anywhere close to that. And they don't want you to believe that it is. That is their point. And that's the reason with anybody with a wrestling background, you can kiss your job goodbye in the WWE because they're not interested in professional wrestling. They're interested in sports entertainment. And you bring up this professional wrestling angle and you're finished. That is the bottom line on that because they're not in the professional wrestling business. They're in sports entertainment and have been for a long time.
Sheila Ottman. I know that name, Jack. Where do I know this? Is that
Fred's wife? Yeah, that's Fred's wife. Yeah.
I thought that was Sheila. Hello, how are you doing? We're talking professional wrestling. We're not talking about anything particular. If you've just joined us, we're just rambling on tonight. And just going to talk about and soon we're going to be talking about what we're going to be doing on Facebook coming up in the next year because as of May 1st we've actually been 1 year on Facebook. Me and Jack have been pushing this thing as much as we can to give to talk about professional wrestling in the past and give the territories because they are being forgotten. There's no doubt that because Vince McMahon's not going to tell you about Mid-South Wrestling. He may put it on his network, but he's not going to tell you about it. And so we just want to we wanted to bring back and talk about the old days and the old wrestlers and just kind of give them. Larry Brock said Tommy was tough. Yes, he was tough. Yeah, you would not want to mess with Tommy Rich. There's no doubt. Hello, Kevin Tubbs. Thank you so much for being on here. Jack, are you still working? Larry Brock.
I was never able to work. I am still in the business, but I have not been in the ring in 11 years. I stick to booking and helping guys out, just doing all kinds of other underhanded stuff behind the scenes. Because when you're a heel, you stay a heel.
David Lawson, we were talking about the guy that I will not give any word to because he is a horrible human being, I believe. But he says, can tell you what Cornette calls him. Well, you'd have to go to Cornette's deal to know what he calls them.
Yeah, we're a
little better than that. Even though he is not a great guy. Terry Gordy, Jason Weeks said Gordy, one of the top 3 big men ever. I agree. Charles Alford, lay it in safe places.
There you go.
There you go. There's old Tommy Pittner.
Hey!
Great wrestler back in the Tennessee area. Wish the territories will make a comeback. What's your take on it? I do believe a territory could come back. The only thing that is stopping you at this point, and Jack knows, is the talent to be able to understand that what they're watching on television is not what you as a local promoter or a local territory that's going to run a town every week or every other week or even every month, that you have to slow it down. And it's hard, isn't it, Jack, to get them to understand the slowing down part.
It really is.
Don't you think that's the key point? Because I believe you have the ability to reach the people now. But to be able to slow down the people.
Yeah, the internet has given us a way to reach people that we've never had in our history before.
Yeah.
And I think that the potential of it is just barely being tapped right now. But there's a lot of promotions that are starting to understand that you can reach worldwide if you put a good product out there. But there's still old school philosophies that you need to do if you're doing that, because if you're filming your home show, like most of them do, and putting it on there, why would somebody buy a ticket when they can sit at home and watch it? So, there's a purpose to televise, whether it's on TV, the internet, or the drive-in theater. There's a purpose why you televise stuff, and that's to get people to come buy a ticket. And if you're giving your product away, you don't make money that way. And that's been my hardest thing to try to get guys to understand, about the usage of it. But man, I think territories are very possible to come back.
Yeah.
I hear people all the time that are hungry for that type of wrestling again. But you can do it with any style of wrestling if you do it smart.
This is true. What do you think, Rodney?
Oh, I absolutely think there's a market for it. And I think that this whole thing of trying to do a national, I think it all starts local. I think you'd have to build it one market at a time. Once you get one market, then you expand into 2 to 3 to 4. But basically, comes right down to the talent and having the right mixture in talent. Have people that know what they're doing and can understand that things happened 13 weeks from now. We're not going to do it all in one night. We're going to start the show when the bell rings and end it in the same night. That's just not the way it's done. And especially like Jack was saying, you can't show everything you've done on television. It just doesn't work. Because why would you do that when you can sit at home and watch it for free? So it has to be arena driven, and with TV being like the news, just giving it the highlights and letting people know what's coming up next.
Well, I will tell you, WWE not doing live events, if that is something that he continues doing even after the problems going on in the world right now, I think that his product will suffer greatly because the wrestlers are not going to have their time. They're not going to learn. They're not going to learn their craft, and they're certainly not going to learn their timing and stuff. So if he tries that, I'm sorry, that's going to be bad for WWE. A wrestler has to wrestle. There are some great wrestlers out there, and there's some great guys that know and maybe will listen to say, listen, it's not what you're watching on TV. It's not about the high flyings. It's not about the going in and out of the ring. And I think if you could find that core group of guys and then you could find 14 guys and you got 14 sitting over here waiting, because the problem would be is being able to find the 14 and then having 14, because after about 13 weeks, they're going to get tired of seeing them.
Right.
And so
at least half of them have to be moved for sure.
They have to be moved. So that's the one thing. Kevin Tubbs, was Wally McDaniel's chops as painful as they look? Yes. Everybody that ever said anything, we got chopped by him when we were a kid.
Yeah. Wahoo would start coming at us and we would run.
Ooh.
We wouldn't stand around. He said, well, why are y'all running from me? I said, well, you stay right over there. We're okay. Just say hello and we'll be all right.
He chopped us one time at the TV station at WTBS. Well, it's WTCG at the time.
TCG 17, yeah.
Not TBS yet. But, man, that guy, he hurt us. Can you imagine what he did to Johnny Valentine? David Lawson saw one of Gordy's last matches, thinking in 801 in Athens, Tennessee. Ronnie was a promoter. I think Jack might have been there at the National Guard Army in Athens. Yeah, we've had our difficulties in buildings, and we can go into that one day of the problems we had in 1996. It was one problem after another with buildings. It was not fun. We got knocked out of the Memorial Auditorium the first night we were there. Then we got closed down in Cleveland, Tennessee by the city. So, it just, and then we moved to McDonald, Tennessee, if you remember, and that was horrible. That nobody even knew McDonald, Tennessee existed. Larry Brock said, amen, about something we were talking about. We've talked about so much, and I am getting older, so I think I don't know if I remember what I talked about 10 minutes ago. Charles,
I'm going to say he get an amen to me. How's that?
There you go, and amen to you. Charles Alford said I got released before. I think he got released before he. Fred Ottman said, "Hey, kayfabe,
What?
does that even exist anymore? I don't know. I'm kind of wondering if
she died a long time ago, I believe. I believe she's been dead for a while, ain't she?
I think so. I remember one time Tracy Smothers, we were up front selling merchandise. This was 1987, 88, I believe. It might be 1987. And so we're up there, and this lady came up and she said, "I know everything Tracy's going on in the wrestling business. I know it all. I know everything's going on." He says, "I know Joyce Crable. I know when she throwed all these wrestlers." And he looked at her and said, "Well, do you know who kayfabe is?" And she said, "Well, I don't know who she is, but I know."
Yeah, I know Joyce Grable. Tell me I don't know.
No, that was something else. And by the way, Tracy Smothers is having a bad time right now, and I think Jack, on your Facebook page, I think if people find you, you have some stuff, and I think I'll put that on tonight too if I can find it. And
he's in fact, I just got notified they're having a sale on some T-shirts to help raise money for him, and I just got my notification that it got mailed to me today. So. $25, you help somebody out. And I also like to mention Joel Deaton is having a tough time now. He had a stroke a few months ago, and I talked to his ex-wife yesterday, and he has not let people know how bad he really is. And she's found out. She's spearheading an effort to raise money for him and help him, which if you'll find me on Facebook, I've posted that stuff actually tonight. Or anybody wants to know anything about this stuff can message me. I'll be more than happy to talk to them.
All right, yeah, we need to try to help Tracy Smothers and Joel Deaton, no doubt. Jason Weeks asked, he said, "Brent, which was better time between Mid-South and Continental?" I don't know. I'll let Rodney answer this, and
1984, you couldn't beat them, and in fact, Mid-South could have beaten anybody in 1984. But in 1986, Continental was on fire. So it was it just depends on the time frame. Fact of the matter is, we went back to Mid-South after the 1984. Back in the UWF days, and it just was not the same place at all. I mean, Bill Watts pretty much has stepped back, and it wasn't the same company at all. But as far as what was the best time, 1984 Mid-South, 1986 Continental.
Yeah, I agree with that. Those 2 years were very good. The UWF TVs were great.
Yeah.
Ken Mantell was booking those, and I think people have a tendency to think that Eddie Gilbert booked it, but I don't know that Eddie Gilbert ever booked at that time when they were doing that. Ken Mantell was the one that booked the majority of the time that was going on, and he had some great televisions. I mean, he had the end where you want to watch it the next week. I mean, he produced probably some of the best television I think I had watched up to that point, as far as episodic television to make you want to watch
it was like if you went to the house shows, it was like watching two different shows. We even commented about that. We got some heat as normal, but that's what you are. You're honest. What do you think of the show? Well, it was only as good as the TV show. I mean, come on.
Michael Hayes was the one of the I don't know. I guess they called him Aegis at the point because he was an assistant booker, but he was taking care of the show in Little Rock, Arkansas, and we said, man, that's the boringest thing I ever seen. The only match was any good was the missing link with Dark Journey and John Tatum with Dark Journey. The rest of them were horrible. Even their matches were horrible. They made no sense, and they told no story. And
it didn't have anything to do with the TV show itself. I mean, it was a disconnect there.
Cole Jack, I'm still refereeing at the age. Now there's
three numbers there. I mean, there's three numbers. That must be at least.
I'll just leave that one alone.
Man, Larry Brockpenny's 100 years older.
100 years old.
At least 100. It could be 109.
Larry, if it makes you feel better, I did a spot in Rome, Georgia back in December where I let a guy, I'm the commissioner, general manager role there, and I let a guy spear me, and it took me from the middle of December till after Christmas to be able to get out of bed. I'm done.
No more taking bumps for Jack Lord.
You.
And I'm not. I've never really took that many bumps in my time, and I don't want to take any. So
Had all I want.
Let's see. Greg Evans said only way would be syndicated TV, and there is some syndicated places. There is like ABC's got always their other little syndicated things, but I'm not for sure. I don't know that you can. You might be able to syndicate today, but I'd have to look into that. I don't think I've looked in. I don't know if are those shows any local shows on any of them channels, because they look like they're all old shows.
The closest to syndication you got now is that Sinclair network that owns Ring of Honor. And wherever there's a Sinclair station, they carry the show, but they very rarely take the show to those areas. So, I don't know if syndication, used to be that was the way to go. I mean, that was it. I think really it's moved more towards the internet and the ease of people and their taste and being able to watch stuff on demand. So if you wanted to watch, let's say we had a wrestling show on and you wanted to watch it, we put it out on Mondays, then you can watch it Mondays when it comes out, or you can wait till, Thursday night at midnight and, bring up this week's episode.
Or you can at least binge watch it and really get involved with it. So Fred said, young talent emulate what they see on TV. Yes, sir.
And older talent did as well. Mm-hmm. As anybody, I will give an example. Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Wendell Cooley. You remember Jim Duggan would grab the rope and do the stomp? Well, not until Wendell Cooley saw that did he start doing it. And then all of a sudden, he comes to Continental, and what does he do? He does the stomp.
And not only did he stomp, one night he did Wrestling 2's knee lift. He did Scott Armstrong super kick. Probably somebody else's finish during the.
I took all that from Wendell. At one time, I took all that from Wendell.
Wendell Cooley, great wrestler. We're not trying to knock you, Wendell, if you're watching this.
Oh no, I love Wendell. Wendell was a dream to work with.
Yeah, he was great, but we're just telling the truth. You used people.
Yeah, you stole people's stuff.
So I mean, we're just telling you the truth of what you did. And
he did do the Hulk Hogan leg drop. Now we have to give him that.
Now he might have done the ear thing. I'm not.
He might did he? Okay.
I'm not sure. He may have done that. I don't know. I know Wendell one time decided he was going to change his music from When Heaven Is a Lot Like Dixie to I can't remember the name of but it said something about keep your hands to yourself. Georgia Satellites did it, and I mean them people. I told him, I said, well, that people just got quiet. They didn't even say nothing. I said, I found out one thing about you, Wendell. You're not over. The song is. I kid with you, Wendell. He did. He was very good. He had great matches with Buddy Landell. Had great matches with Dutch Mantel. I loved
working with Wendell.
Yeah, he was good. Now I didn't always get along with him, but you got to know Wendell. And once you got to know Wendell, he was a pretty good guy. All right, let's see. Let's make sure we got everything over here. Charles offered makes sense. Greg Evans, you have to give them angles. Yes, I agree. I don't see angles now. I don't see something. I'm not for sure they know what they're going to do right now from week to week. I just think they got a dartboard back there and they're throwing it and they say, whoa, that looks like what we're going to do right there tonight. I don't know that they've got angles. I don't know that they're developing.
I think that they do, but if they don't get an immediate response from what they plan, they change it.
Yeah.
I think, the thing with the way we used to do it is we would give it time to build. Of course, we were also flexible. I remember Bill Dundee talking about, he knew what he wanted done 8 weeks down the road, but if he had to change which direction to go to get there, he would.
Well, Nick Goulas was good at that because Nick Goulas' dad was refereeing. This is earlier when he was refereeing, and Nick Goulas, he was sitting there and he was watching the matches, and it was a tag match up there. And I remember it being a tag match because Dad said, but I don't remember who was in the ring. And he said, "Hey boy, come over here." He said, "What do you see?" What do you see out there? He said, well, I see so-and-so, whoever it was wrestling when they getting some. He said, no, I ain't what I'm talking about. What do you see out there? And he still didn't get what he was talking about. And he said, well, I want you to look out there. He said, you see them empty seats sitting right there? He said, you see those empty seats sitting right there? And way up top, if you look, there's some empty seats way up there at the top. He said, I'm going to go back over here. I think Lynn Rossi was the booker. He said, I'm going to go back and tell Lynn Rossi that don't you dare put that match on the main event next week, because it didn't draw this week, and it certainly ain't going to draw next week. You can put it in your semi, you can put it in your third match, but get me another main event, because last week those seats were sold. I think that's missing in wrestling today. I think they just, if they're going to push, it's a sad thing, if they're going to push a certain wrestler, they just keep on pushing them regardless if he gets over or not sometimes.
More like regular television.
Yeah.
If you're watching Arrow or Black Lightning, that's the same concept, and they're not going to change till the end.
This is true. Mike, Shafer Territories are the best. Yes, I would agree. I think Jack would agree. The Territories were now, they were not. They were not always great. Now, do all of us agree that the Territories were not always great? There was a time that the Territories wasn't as good some months that they were other months. I think that was any wrestling. I mean, we were in Georgia, and Georgia would do bad for 4 or 5 months, and then it would start doing good for about 6 months. So there was always bad times. Don't y'all agree?
Right. Yeah. I absolutely agree with
that. Greg Evans said, occasionally shock them. Yeah, I tell you, if you could shock them and actually have a good wrestling match, that would be a shock.
Yeah.
that would be very shocking for people. I would rather go to a good local indie show. I think some people have great matches if they don't just watch Monday Night Raw and say, hey, that's what we're going to do this week. I mean, it would be.
Well, that's what we were talking about. The demand. I think there's like he was talking about, a thirst for being at the show instead of watching on television.
Greg Evans must move talent every 4 months. I agree with him. That is Wahoo deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He's not in the WWE Hall of Fame.
No, I don't believe so.
Wow.
And I don't think he's in the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame either, which to me is the one that really matters.
Larry Brock said prayers for Tracy. Yes, we send that out. Greg Rice said wrestling in the Nick Goulas days was better and more real. Today's is just a decent wrestling and wrestlers that are great on the mic. Yeah, I mean, Nick Goulas had great wrestling, and it was believable. And I believe you could do a believable product today. I think if Vince would use his network to produce a completely different show, I know why he doesn't want to do it on USA Network. I know why he doesn't want to do it on Fox. He's producing a show that he told him he's going to produce. But try to produce something on your network a different type of product, and see if it catches on. I mean, you've got the network, use it, and not just for you got all that space. Use it with a different product.
I often encourage people about watching NXT, because even though it's a WWE product, it's totally different to me product of what you see on Raw and SmackDown. Triple H, people can say what they want to, but he has more of an old school vision for what the product is. And they've actually had some professional wrestling matches on there. And they even let them refer to it as that.
Man!
The storylines are better too. I mean, they still do the flips and the flops and the leg slaps that I don't, that's a whole show. But I like the product a lot better. I'm an NXT guy. I'm not going to lie. For any product out there today, NXT to me is the best out there.
Mike Shafer, Dothan, Alabama has 2 organizations running local matches. I think one of those is, I'm supposed to talk to him this week. What's the guy's name again? The guy that runs Dothan.
Everything just left me.
Yeah, I do know what the guy's name is. Dennis Gill. Thank you.
Dennis. Yeah.
I told you, you know, it's when you get old, you just Jackie Fargo. Love those days. Jackie Fargo.
Yeah.
Oh,
Classic. Man. Classic.
Let me tell you something, Pally. There was no better than Jackie Fargo. My dad, he loved Jackie Fargo. That was who he looked up to. And I tell you, him and his friend dyed their hair blonde. And they would go to school and they would do the Fargo strut at school. And they one time decided that they were going to do the big move on people that the Fargos was doing. And that was the double pile driver.
Double pile driver.
So they picked the kid up and double pile drived him. And, well, there was a rock sitting there stuck in the guy's head. So needless to say, both were suspended from school. But he loved Jackie Fargo. That was the Fargos was their person. Charlie Platt was the best in Continental Wrestling. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, he was. I like Gordon Soley, and I thought Gordon Soley was really great, but I thought that Charlie I think he fit it much better than Gordon Soley did. Even though Gordon was good, I think Charlie, he fit it much better. Greg Rice, Kevin Tubbs, he was one of the best wrestlers in the ring and on the mic ever. If they would have allowed the language back then, he would have made Stone Cold look bad. Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, and he was true. He was truly that way. There's a lot of stories we could tell about Jackie Fargo. Dad he told us, me and Rodney, many stories go down the road. Maybe we need to do a show one time of just Jackie Fargo stories because he did some crazy stuff. Mike Shafer said, "Dirty Larry Brock." And now I'm not.
Larry's been called out.
He's been called out by Mike Shafer. Rita Cantrell, Washington. Let's all say a special prayer for our friend Joel Deaton. Yes, we need to do that. Fred Oldman said yes to something we were talking about. We've went through a lot of things since then, but we've talked about something and you know, we have to say one of the funniest things that ever happened to a professional wrestler happened to him, and we won't go into that right now because he don't want to hear it, because I know he's heard it so many times he don't want to hear it again. Greg Evans, good point. Mike Shaver said Continental runs a Saturday night tape show on WDHN. I think I have watched part of that show. I think I have seen part of it. Charles Alford, did Bruiser Brody work Continental? No.
I don't think so.
I don't think he did. I know he came into Georgia Championship Wrestling a few times, and
yes,
he got fired. And I'll tell you, we're running out of time, but I'll tell you a little story, and I'll let Rodney finish it. Bruiser Brody came on television. Buck Robley was booking, and I'll let Rodney tell you the rest of the story why he got fired.
Well, in the studios there at TBS, there were always two wheelchairs. We don't know why they were two wheelchairs. In fact, we sit in them during the show. Well, Bruiser Brody decided to take one of these wheelchairs, stick his opponent in a wheelchair on TBS, and kick him out of the chair. Well, back then, TBS was very controlling of the show and on the content of the show, and apparently had a hemorrhage over that. Well, Jim Barnett calls in Buck Robley and fires Buck Robley and Bruiser Brody because TBS must have threatened to pull the show altogether because they did not agree with that at all. And and then right after that, the Freebirds leave, if you remember. Hayes, Gordy, and Roberts all leave in protest over firing Buck Robley. So it was big to do, but Barnett was determined to keep his position on TBS, for without it, he really had nothing, especially in Atlanta.
You know, the Georgia Championship Wrestling is a very unique company in itself because it had different promoters. And I think we need to talk about that one day, about the different promoters there. It wasn't just Jim Barnett, and there was other promoters and other owners. And it's very interesting the way they ran wrestling compared to what they run wrestling today. Stephanie, hello, how you doing? We're going to try to get there to the Fan Fest. I think it's November 22nd, I believe, and it's going to be at all right, Stephanie, you'll probably have to tell us where it's going to be. I did have it right, but the Fan Fest, Continental Championship Wrestling Fan Fest, and we are going to do our best to be there and see everybody. Stanley Nix, Mr. West, is there any way to find some old Continental? I think he means tapes. You can find them online. Also, Amazon's got a thing of Continental Championship Wrestling on it.
They do.
I'm thinking Ron Fuller must have put that on.
And Jarrett Parsons also has that Roku channel, and I think they're on Fire Stick or some of those other apps too. And they have quite a few episodes of Continental Wrestling.
Fred Altman said, whatever happened to the gimmick matches, falls anywhere in the building, rushes and chain matches, bunkhouse brawls, etc.? Well, I can answer that question. There's no rules in professional wrestling, so there's no reason to ever have a bunkhouse match or something.
Nope.
I mean, true. I mean, you have to have rules first.
I agree with you on that. I mean, no rules. It's just, I got a better idea. Why don't they take the steps from the ring? That might help the match, make them different. Every match, bang, into the desk. Into the steps.
Well, I will tell you this. If I was going to do a contract signing, I would tell those people, so listen, I'll sign that contract, but I ain't getting in the ring.
No. Just bring it back to me.
And I'm afraid you're going to beat me up, and I'm just not getting in there. I'm not so sorry.
You're right.
You think people would smarten up to the fact after a while. Don't get in there.
That's kind of like going to the set with Lance on Memphis. You just don't do it.
What were the worst territories y'all worked for? I don't think any of the territories would. No. Central States was kind of bad, but that
was not their fault. No, it wasn't Bob Geigel. That was the fight between Bob Geigel and Jim Crockett, really. That's
a story amongst itself. We'll have to share about that whole problem. That was a problem from the time we got there and the time we left. There was no working with each other. I think they need to bring pro wrestling this week style program. There's a lot of wrestling out there now. If you can get them to agree with it, would be the one thing. I'm surprised that Joe Pedicino was able to get all the wrestling promoters to send them the tapes. It was kind of a big deal. Stephanie Wood did tell us Dennis Gale, Charlie Platt. I tried to get Charlie Platt on here, and he said he couldn't get through.
Man.
We definitely want to get Charlie Platt back on here.
Yeah, Charlie, he's got to get started. We really need to get him on to talk about Gulf Coast. Talk about Cowboy Bob Kelly and Eddie Sullivan. And I think Terry Garvin and Jimmy Garvin was there when Dad was there, and go over those, because those are tremendous years that they had down there. And then the Fields, Lee Fields, one of the smartest people in professional wrestling, one of the best promoters ever.
Sputnik Monroe, boy, we could do a whole show on Sputnik Monroe.
Yeah,
he was a character. There was no doubt he was a character, especially in Memphis, Tennessee. When you're talking wrestling, somebody told me that, you think people talk about Jerry Lawler, Bill Dundee, Jackie Fargo, but when you talk wrestling in Memphis, they talk about Sputnik Monroe, because not only was he something great in the wrestling business, but he also did a lot for other things that we do need to talk about on a program when we have time. Whatever happened to Rick Stewart, Bubba Griffin? Rick Stewart, I think he passed away, back in the 90s, didn't he?
I believe so.
Rick Stewart was very good at what he did. He was really good. He made it. Good night, Larry Brock, and we are running out of time. So let me make sure I get everybody in there. Bring back the 2-ring triple chance battle royals.
I just did one in Rome.
He just did one in Rome. Let's see. Where was Gulf Coast Championship Wrestling? That had been Pensacola, Florida, Dothan, Alabama. I'm not for sure. Montgomery.
Into Mississippi, Hattiesburg, Biloxi, Meridian. Yeah. They pretty much ran it, like I said, almost the same as Continental, except they did some stuff more so in Hattiesburg and Biloxi back in the day.
Jeffrey, thank you so much. We tried to discuss it, and we didn't even have anything planned. We just come in here and wung it. Wing it.
Potluck.
I'm not sure what that would be, would it?
Whatever.
Before we leave, I want to thank everybody for the last year. If you've been part of the Facebook page, we want to thank you so much. We've been doing it 1 year. We enjoy it. We enjoy every moment of it. We love to relive the wrestling. That was great. wrestling that was great, and we do this. You get 3 posts a day most of the time, and then we're starting to do these on Monday. But let me tell you a little bit of what we're looking at doing each week. Every Monday, we will try to do the wrestling discussion, and it'll just be a wide open discussion. We'll just talk about wrestling in general. It can be today's wrestling, yesterday's wrestler, or a wrestler. You could just come on and just leave your comments, and we're eventually going to see if we'll start getting where they can come on like this. We just got to make sure that we vet those people, and you don't have somebody come in here and the next thing you know, they're in their living room naked
I was not vented. I mean, what you
so,
got here, this is what I'm saying. I can see what you're saying now.
We know where you live.
Oh.
So we want to make sure we don't have that, but we're eventually going to try to move some people. Maybe if you've been on every week, we'll try to get you on here. That way you can be part of the actual show.
That'll be
fun. We've thought about, we will just wide open and we'll put the link there. Then we started thinking, well, what if somebody's, there's no telling. So we'll make sure that you're not going to do something that's going to be bad for it's a family show. So we'll try to keep that. Now that will be on Mondays. On Tuesdays, we'll continue doing the Tuesdays wrestling talk, and we'll talk about a wrestler. On the majority of the time, we'll talk about a wrestler. It'll be about the Freebird, Mr. Wrestling #2. We're going to be talking about in the future. We're going to be talking about Steve Austin and Brian Pillman when they did the Hollywood Blondes. So there's going to be somebody every week. We'll take a wrestler. We'll talk about them. We like for you to come on, make your comments about the wrestler. Hey, give us some of your memories about what wrestler they are. And so that'll be every Tuesday. On Wednesdays, Rodney West will be doing the show about Mid-South Wrestling. That'll be every Wednesday. He'll be booking with Bill Dundee for the next about 6 to 8 weeks. And then after that, Rodney will go back to 1979. He will start from the beginning of 1979 when Bill Watts buys in. Okay, I don't know that he bought into it, but he did start Mid-South Wrestling. So we'll get into that, and we'll start from 79, and we'll go all the way through to the UWF days, and we'll tell some stories, and we'll let you a little bit know what went on in Mid-South Wrestling back in those days. And then Thursday, Mitch Lucas will still be the host, and we'll still be talking about Continental Championship Wrestling, a discussion about that each week, and talking about two-ring Triple Chance Battle Royal. If you tune in on Thursday, you will be able to see a two-ring Triple Chance Battle Royal that took place in April of 1986. And then we're going to start doing stuff on the YouTube channel that will only be for the YouTube channel. We'll start talking about Georgia Championship Wrestling. Now, this will probably be sometime in the latter part or maybe the first part of 2021. But we're going to talk about Georgia Championship Wrestling. We will also talk about Memphis Wrestling. We will also talk about the WWF up to a certain point. There will be a cutoff point that we won't talk about it as it gets later on, but we will talk about because they did some great stuff back in the early 70s, the 80s. Some great stuff was done for the WWF. And then we'll look at the National Wrestling Alliance that happened between 1985 and 1988 on TBS when Jim Crockett Jr. and the NWA took it over. Not the whole NWA, because that could take a lot of time and a lot of places, but we'll talk about that. And then our long-term plans, and we're talking about 12 to 18 months, is to eventually produce an old school pro wrestling show. This show we don't think is going to be the next big wrestling promotion. We don't believe that. We don't think it will be. What we want to do, though, is to produce a show that will be similar to something you watch back in the 80s, Georgia Championship Wrestling, more than that program, a little small program, and it will produce pro wrestling. Now, that's a while away because we've got a lot of stuff we have to the world right now, the way it is, so we have to take a while to get there. But we do want to produce it. We do want to do an old school wrestling program, and we do want to have old school wrestling back. And like I said, we don't think we're going to be the next. Me and Jack talked about that. Rodney talked about. We don't think we're going to be the next WWE. We're not even saying that's what we're going to be. But we do like to see an old school pro wrestling product the way it was done back in the 70s and 80s. Not even the 90s, the 70s and 80s, before wrestling went crazy. And we will do that.
Before corporations got involved.
Before corporations got involved, but it will be old school wrestling from old school people who have been there, have done it, and saw it. And we just want to produce a wrestling show that people can watch and enjoy it and watch professional wrestling, not sports entertainment. And then we also are going to start talking to a bunch of promoters that do local shows, and we're going to try to see if we can work with them and then show just a little bit of what they have to offer in those areas in Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, and just show just a little snippet of what they got to offer the people and show the wrestlers they have in that area. And I think that's in the nutshell. That's what we're looking for in the next year, 12 to 18 months. And I think that we have a lot that we want to do and accomplish. And the one thing I think we all three of us can say is we all love professional wrestling.
Sure can.
Sure do.
Yeah. And with that said, I want to thank everybody for being a part of this show. And join us next week on our next episode when we will talk about nothing, anything you want to talk about, professional wrestling. We will see you. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Rodney. And we will see y'all on the next episode of the Wrestling Conversation.